Hey guys, and I am here with a TBR update. So I think I'm going to be doing this every 3 months. I'm going to be giving you an update on what my TBR looks like at that point in time. So considering the fact that on the 1st of July my TBR was 0, here's the update on how it changed in 3 months time. Now, I already kind of talked about this one within my last wrap up, and that is that I kind of want to lower the number again. So I basically kind of decided for myself that I was going to put in a threshold of 30 books, and at this point in time there should be 28 on there, but I think I want to lower that again to maybe like 20 or like 25. No, I think 20 will be a nice number to kind of test out for a while, just because my TBR at this point in time is quite top heavy, and maybe once I get rid of all those books that I bought in the month of July, which is over half I think of what is on this cart, then I won't feel the same way anymore, because I might have a more division across the months. But at this point in time I feel like there's so many books on there that I bought in July that I really wanted to get to and that I still haven't gotten to. So perhaps this is just a natural process of the results coming from buying all of your books more or less at the same time. And if I have a more natural division over the months, I won't mind as much to have 30 books on there, but we'll see. I'm going to try and reduce it for the time being down to 20 more or less, and obviously my goal is to get a lot of those top heavy, so July books off of there. But for the month of October I am going to make quite some dents, but it's not necessarily going to be all July books that I'm reading. But so, without further ado, this is my TBR card. You don't have a full view of it because it has 3 layers. The bottom layer you're currently not seeing. So the way that it's currently structured, because the structure kind of shifts when I have more of a certain book than of others. And I should actually remove 2 books because there are 2 library books on there which I need to return yesterday actually, so they are not staying on that card. I did not finish them. I'm hoping to get them off of my library again soon, but that will be Ship of Magic and Ordinary Monsters, which is 2 humongous books that can kind of disappear already right now. Alright, with those gone, now there should be 28 books on there. But so basically the top level at this point in time is continuation, so it's sequels, third books, whatever, anything within a series that is not its first book. Second level contains standalone fantasy plus first books within a series fantasy, and the third level, the one that you're currently not seeing, the one that has the most books on it currently, is other genres, and that is clearly not been what I've been reaching for in the 3 months since completing Zero TBR. Since completing Zero TBR, my mood has very much been on fantasy, and when I've been reading other genres, it's mainly been because of obligations that I had for the BookTube prize, for example. So let's dive through it. I'm going to start at the bottom, so I'm going to start with the other genres and I'm going to make my way up to the top. Let's start with non-fiction. There are 2 non-fictions on there. The first one in principle I'm reading, but to be fair I have only read the introduction, and that is The Silk Roads by Peter Frankopan. This is obviously a non-fiction about the Silk Roads, discussing its impact on our world history. Very chunky book that I'm hoping to absolutely enjoy. Second non-fiction is Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari, A Brief History of Humankind. This is a generalist approach to history writing, in which it kind of looks at the big waves of history, more or less, the way that you can describe history on a more general level, because a lot of times when we're discussing history we're looking at individual facts, we're looking at individual time periods, individual cultures, for example, to kind of discuss what is happening there and the evolution of that timeline. But this is kind of trying to take a more generalist approach and look at how world history as a whole was evolving. I've heard really great things about this one, and I'm really hoping that this one really worked for me as well. So fingers crossed. I will probably audiobook this one while having the physical copy with me to be able to annotate as well. And then I guess I also have a little bit of a divide book here, and that is a memoir, which is Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. This is a memoir talking about the loss of her mother, dealing with the grief of the loss of her mother, and then simultaneously, I guess, talking about the relationship with her mother and the experience of growing up Chinese and American and having that immigrant experience, I believe. I've heard really, really good things about this one, and I kind of picked it up on a whim. It was on my like long list TBR, but I kind of picked it up on a whim and be like, yeah, I want to pick it, I want to read it now, and now we're 3 months later and I still haven't read it. Another one to potentially highlight now is A Life Ceremony by Sayaka Murata. So this is this is definitely fiction, but this is a short story collection. I very much love Sayaka Murata's writing. I very much enjoyed her 2 previous translated works, which is Convenience Store Woman and Earthlings, and so I'm not a typical short fiction lover, but I hope to really enjoy this one. And then let's go through the remainder of this shelf, which is mainly contemporary or historical or kind of horror-ish. But yeah, I'm gonna go through them relatively quickly. I don't plan to give like long explanations for any of the books on this card at this point in time. It's just a little bit of an overview. We have Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason, which I believe gives a very accurate depiction of depression. People Person by Candice Carty-Williams, basically on there because I absolutely loved her book Queenie, and so I really definitely wanted to read her other book. Also, it has beautiful sprayed edges. A 4th book in the series, Before Your Memory Fades by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. So this is the 4th book in the series that starts with Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I absolutely love this one. Translated from Japanese, I love myself some Japanese literature. Next up we have Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. This is a literary debut. It's historical. It's talking about feminism, a woman who hosts a TV show that is teaching people to cook, I believe, but simultaneously is also teaching them to stand up for themselves. It has a lot of hype at the moment, and so I'm very eager to dive into it. Then one that I should actually say that at the time of filming I've already finished is The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak. This is a historical fiction in which we are looking at the history of Cyprus and the way that a Turkish-Greek relationship developed through the turbulent times on Cyprus. One of the perspectives of this book is the perspective of a fig tree. Now we have 3 books that kind of have something in common, and I will be doing a reading vlog for these together, which is A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers. This is a cannibalism book. Tender is the Flesh by Agustina Bastarrica, translated from Spanish. It is an Argentinian novel talking about what would happen if animal meat is no longer an option because of a disease that all animals are infected with, and so we have to resort to human flesh. So, another cannibalism book. And of course, that will also be the case for the 3rd one, Mother for Dinner by Shalom Auslander, which looks at this family that has a tradition that when one of their family members dies, the rest of the family eats them. And there is actually a book missing, I think. Where is it? So I don't know where this book is. I will have to locate it. I know, it totally didn't disappear. I just missed 2 books on the shelf, clearly. So, If Cats Disappeared from the World by Genki, I don't know how to say the G for Japanese. Genki Kawamura. And then we have Ghost by Dolly Alderton. And I have to say that I don't actually know what Ghost is about, but I've heard really good things about it and about Dolly Alderton's writing, so I'm really eager to dive into it. So starting with first books within the series, the first one I have here is The Black Coast by Mike Brooks. First book in the God King Chronicles. Yeah. I think this one features dragons. I think it has a great queer rep as well, and the 3rd one just came out in September, I believe, so this is a completed trilogy that I absolutely need to start. The Curse of the Mist Wraiths by Jenny Wurtz. This is a humongous book. It is over 700 pages long. It is part of a 10-part series, I believe. Potentially it isn't completed yet, but I'm not entirely sure of that. But it also has multiple storylines within its series, so multiple like story arcs. The whole is one big series, but there are like certain parts that you can kind of read separately, so to speak. And so The Curse of the Mist Wraiths, for example, I think is a full story arc. So if you wanted to, you could potentially like stop after book 1 and not continue and not feel like you're missing out. but don't take my full word for that because, as I said, I still need to read it. Then we have Those Above by Daniel Polanski. This is the first book in a duology. I read another book by Daniel Polanski and really enjoyed this one, so I wanted to read that one, and so I wanted to read more Daniel Polanski. This is a rebellion type story, so in the past a rebellion happened, it was quashed down, and so now they are trying to come up with a plan for a new rebellion. And then the final one. So, editing Cleo here, because that was not the final one. There were not 28 books on my trolley at the time of filming, because one of them was right here in my editing chair, which is The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick, which is another gifted book. I got this one from Tufty as well. So this is Venetian-inspired fantasy, and I will be reading it very shortly because I am going to Venice in November, and that seems like the perfect time to pick this one up. The Black Tongue Thief by Christopher Buehlman. I think the second one isn't out yet for this one, so I think we only have this one so far, or I've at least not seen anybody talk about its sequel. This basically is looking at a thief who basically is in debt with the academy that trained him, and so he will need to take on some cases to be able to pay them back, I guess. I really don't know too much about this one. Going through the standalone fantasies, first up we have a Fairy Lewd's book, which is The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon. This is a beautiful straight edge edition again, and so this one is fantasy romance basically, but it is like, as you can tell with all the imagery related to bones and stuff like that, it's going to have a little bit of a darker edge, so it would be perfect for this time of year, I think, so I would love to be able to fit it in somewhere this month, but I'm not entirely sure that I'll be able to do that. Then we have two books that I was gifted. First we have The Sword of Kaigan by M.L. Wang. This was given to me by a lovely subscriber, Tufty. I really want to read this one, but I actually think that my plan will be to have this be the first book that I read in 2023. So it's coming. It's coming, guys. And so this is standalone fantasy, Asian inspired. I think we have a mother as a main character. It's supposed to be brutal, supposed to break my heart. We will see. Then a myth-retelling, Kaikeyi by Vaishnavi Patel. Basically looking at Kaikeyi, a character from the Ramayana, so Indian fantasy, and I was gifted this one by Larissa. Moving on to the top layer, and so first up we have two books that I won't say much about because I already talked about the first book, and that is the Ships of Merior and the Warhost of Vastmark by Jenny Wood. So this is the second and the third book in, I think it's called something like The War of Light and Shadow. Yeah, it's on the top of the book. So yeah, these two are also humongous. Third one luckily is a little bit shorter, but with a little bit shorter it's still over 500 pages long. But so yeah, these ones I will only be able to make my way through once I read the first one. Originally I was going to be reading these for a read along, but I already missed the first month of the read along, and I don't think I can fit these books into October neither, so like I don't know when I'm actually gonna start the series. Next we have a little novella within the universe of His Dark Materials. So this is the Imagination Chamber, to be read after you've finished the full first trilogy. I don't know whether there's a particular order to the novellas that take place after the conclusion of His Dark Materials. So I'll have to look into that once I've finished to see whether I need to read like Lyra's Oxford or Serpentine before reading the Imagination Chamber. But I believe that these different novellas don't really have anything to do with one another, so probably you can read them in whatever order. Next up, one on my October TBR, and that is An Echo of Things to Come by James Islington, second book in the Lycanius trilogy, first book being The Shadow of What Was Lost. Complex fantasy, quite traditional feeling in terms of its world building, but I really enjoyed what it was doing, and I think the second one has a lot more to do with maybe like time travel even, so I'm intrigued about that aspect of this one. Next we have a comic book, which is The Chosen Ones for Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This is one that I have for the half of it already read, but in the reading order that I found online for Buffy the Vampire Slayer comic books, the reboots. This one, the second half of this I don't need to read yet, I need to wait until I get further within that series, so this will stay on this TBR for quite a while, I assume. So in this one we are looking at origin stories of different vampire slayers. So Buffy the Vampire Slayer, obviously a very famous TV show, looking at this young girl who is destined to fight the vampires and fight the demons. And so in this one we're looking at slayers of the past, maybe also of the future. That I don't know, I hope so, but we'll see. And then the final one on here is another gift, and that is Destiny of the Dead by Cal Cate, the sequel to Fate of the Fallen, second book in the Shroud of Prophecy series, looking at what happens when the Chosen One dies at the beginning of his quest. Will somebody else be able to take up the mantle, or is it destined to fail just because of the fact that the Chosen One, the one who was supposed to be able to save this world, has already passed away? So yeah, that's the current TBR. I am hoping to have it be a little bit of a lower number when I next give you guys a full TBR update in the month of January. So, hope you guys enjoyed it. See you guys for the next one. Bye!